Every ask, every endeavor, every hope, every dream, every prayer, all met with a cold, divine no. Why? Lord, why? 73 years. That's 26,645 days of breathing air I never asked for, in a world that never seemed to want me. They tell you life is a gift, don't they? They wrap it in colorful paper and tell you to be grateful for the privilege of existing, but they never tell you how heavy that gift becomes when it's nothing but lead and broken promises. What do you do when the box is empty? Or worse, filled with shards of glass that cut you every time you reach for a moment of hope? I'm talking to you. Yes, you. The silent architect. The great I am, who seems to be I am not whenever I actually needed a hand to hold. You sit behind the veil, watching the clock tick down on my expiration date, while I've spent a lifetime trying to decode your silence, begging for a sign that wasn't a storm. I've looked for you in the stars and in the dirt, and all I found was the cold echo of my own voice. Look at this room. Look at these hands, gnarled, spotted, and trembling like dry leaves in a winter wind. They're empty. I followed the script, didn't I? I played by the rules you allegedly wrote in the hearts of men. I was the boy who sat in the front row, the man who held the door until his arm ached, the citizen who paid his taxes and kept his temper while the world burned around him. I offered up my prayers like clockwork, sending them up into that great, yawning blue vacuum you call heaven. And what did I get back? Silence. Or better yet, a slammed door that bruised my face as I tried to enter the life I thought I had earned through sheer decency. I lived with courtesy in a world of wolves, thinking you'd be my shield. Instead, you were the one who sharpened their teeth and watched the hunt. Let's look at the record, shall we? Let's audit the life of Elias, the man who tried and was denied at every single turn. Academics? I had the intellect. I had a mind that could map the stars and solve the equations of the earth before I was 20. I stayed up until the oil burned out in the lamp, studying for that scholarship, that one golden ticket that would have pulled my family out of the gutter and into the light. I was the best. But on the day of the exam, the fever took me. My blood turned to fire, and I shook so hard I couldn't even hold the pen to write my own name. You let a microscopic germ steal my future. You let a virus mock my ambition. I ended up sweeping floors in the very halls where I should have been a professor, forced to watch the mediocrities I outpaced run the world while I emptied their waste bins and wiped their footprints off the floor. And business? I built up a thriving business from the dirt. It wasn't just a company, it was my soul in a bottle, my attempt to heal a world that had only ever hurt me. I didn't cheat. I didn't cut corners or hide the truth in the fine print. I treated my workers like brothers, paying them more than I took for myself because I believed in the dignity of the man. I prayed for that venture, God. I asked for your blessing on my honesty. And how did you reward me? A partner who saw my trust as a target. Julian. He bled the accounts dry while I slept, fled the country, and left me with the debt, the lawsuits, and a shame that felt like a permanent stain. I lost the house, the car, and the very name my father gave me. You watched from your high throne, unmoved, as the bailiffs took the furniture I'd built with my own sweat, leaving me to sleep on the floor of a ghost-filled apartment. What about love? Sarah. You remember Sarah? Of course you do. You're the one who marked her for departure. I gave you my heart on a silver platter, and you let it be crushed under the heel of a cruel providence. I prayed for her to stay until my throat was raw and my voice was a rasp. I bargained. I promised you my soul, my service, my very breath if you'd just let her lungs take one more cycle of air. I promised I'd be a saint if you'd just stop the clock. But you've always been a hard bargainer, haven't you? You took the only light I had and left me in this gray basement of an existence where the silence of her absence is louder than any thunder I've ever heard. I've failed socially, too. A ghost at the feast, a stranger in my own skin. I see people laughing, connecting, building legacies that will last 100 years. I stand in the corner, a monument to almost. I've been cheated by friends, ignored by peers, and forgotten by the very people I helped when they were down. You've treated me like a cosmic joke, a character in a play written by a sadist who forgot to write a happy ending, or even a meaningful one. I hated him for 20 years. Julian, the man who stole my company and my dignity. I carried that hate like a hot coal in my pocket, letting it burn through my clothes and into my skin. But I remember the day after the bankruptcy. I was sitting on a park bench, contemplating the future. I could not see a future. I sat with empty pockets and a heart full of lead, overcome with worry and fear. That's where I met Marcus. Marcus was a carpenter, a man who knew the grain of wood better than the greed of men. If I had been successful, if I had remained the CEO of my business, I would never have been on that bench. I would have been in a glass office, barking orders at people I didn't know, chasing a profit that never satisfies. Marcus saw my despair. He didn't give me money. He gave me a hammer and a reason to wake up. He taught me how to breathe again by teaching me how to build something that lasts. Because of that failure, I spent 10 years building shelters for people who had even less than I did. I saw children sleep under roofs I helped shingle. I felt the weight of a grateful hand on my shoulder, a weight more precious than any gold coin Julian ever stole. I learned that my hands were meant for more than just signing checks. If I had stayed rich, I would have stayed blind to the world's true hunger. I would have died a wealthy man, but a shallow one. And the scholarship? The one the fever stole? I found out years later, through a chance meeting at a funeral. If I had gone to that university, I would have been in the city. I would have been in the north wing of the dormitory on the night of the carbon monoxide poisoning. 8 souls departed this realm as they slept peacefully in their beds. Every student who died was in my department, friends I had made. They didn't make it out. I spent weeks cursing the fever, calling it a curse from the Almighty, never realizing the fever was a shield. You didn't steal my future. You bought me a life I didn't know I wanted by keeping me in the safety of my own small town. My failure was my survival. My illness was my sanctuary. And Sarah. I blamed you for her loss every single morning. I woke up with her name on my lips and bitterness in my gut. I spent decades in a tomb of my own making because she was gone. But if I hadn't lost her, I never would have walked into that support group in that dusty church basement. I never would have met Martha. Martha was a widow who knew the exact shape of my grief. She didn't try to fix me, she just sat with me in the dark. We didn't have a youthful, fiery passion that burns out with the first wind. We had something deeper. We had a quiet, indestructible companionship born of shared scars and mutual understanding. She showed me that love isn't just the beginning of a story. It's the courage to stay for the middle and the end when the lights are low. She taught me that the heart, when broken, can heal in a way that makes it larger, more resonant than it was before. She died in my arms last year, and even in that pain, I realize I wasn't cheated. I was given 2 lifetimes of love instead of 1. 2 different souls to teach me how to be a man, how to lose, and how to love again. Every no you gave me was a yes to something I wasn't ready to see. Every stop was a redirection to a path I was too stubborn to find on my own. Every door you slammed sent me down a hallway I was too proud to walk down. I thought I was being punished, but I was being polished. I thought I was being abandoned, but I was being protected from the person I would have become if I had always gotten my way. I called it failure. I called it being cheated. But looking back at the long, winding road from this vantage point, the tapestry is different from the underside. Down here, from the human perspective, it's all tangled threads and knots, ugly, messy, senseless colors that don't seem to match or make a shape. But you were looking at the top. You were weaving a pattern I couldn't comprehend, using the black threads of my sorrow to make the gold threads of my character shine. You weren't ignoring my prayers. You were answering the ones I didn't have the wisdom to ask. I've spent 73 years fighting the current, screaming at the river for taking me around the bends I didn't choose. I thought I knew the way. I thought I knew the destination. I thought I knew what I deserved. How arrogant of me. To think that the drop of water knows more than the ocean. To think that the clay can tell the potter, your hands are clumsy and your vision is flawed. I was judging the symphony by a single sour note, forgetting that the composer hears the resolution that follows 1,000 bars later. I was looking at the seed rotting in the ground and calling it death, while you were looking at the harvest. I see it now. The people I met because I was poor became my greatest treasures. The lessons I learned because I was broken became my greatest strengths. The humility I found because I wasn't famous became my greatest peace. If you had answered my prayers exactly as I demanded them, with the ego of a younger, smaller man, I would be a hollow statue today, decorated on the outside and empty within. I would be successful, yes. I would be comfortable, yes. But I would be a man who never knew the depth of his own soul or the breadth of your mercy. You didn't ignore me. You were just speaking a language I hadn't learned to translate yet, the language of the long term, the language of eternity, where a loss is often just a saving. So, here I am, 73. I have no empire. My name isn't carved in marble or lit up in neon. My bones ache with the damp of the coming winter, and my house is quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of a clock that no longer feels like a countdown. But I am not alone. I see your hand in the wreckage. I see your grace in the gaps between what I wanted and what I needed. I see the invisible threads that pulled me away from the fire and into the arms of the people who truly loved me. To anyone listening, to the ones who feel the weight of the silence and the sting of the no, do not mistake a detour for a dead end. Do not mistake the pruning for the killing of the vine. The gardener only cuts what is necessary so that the fruit may be sweeter and the life more abundant. We are all being led. We are all being held, even when the grip feels like a squeeze that might break us. There is a divine intelligence that moves through our failures like a silent, deep river, a supreme force that uses our accidents to position us exactly where we need to be to meet the person who will change us or to perform the act that will save someone else. No one is left behind, not the failure, not the heartbroken, not the forgotten man in the cluttered study. Every life is a masterpiece in progress, even when the artist uses colors we find hard to look at. I trust you now. Not because life is easy, it isn't. Not because I have the answers. I have fewer now than when I was 20. I trust you because I've lived long enough to see the tragedies turn into mercies. I trust the unknown way because the known way was too small for the man you wanted me to be. Thy will be done, not mine, because your no has always been kinder, deeper, and more loving than my yes could ever have been. I sit here in this small, drafty room, surrounded by the remnants of what the world calls a failed life, and I am suddenly struck by a crushing, beautiful realization. I have spent decades mourning my lack of status, my lost business, and my modest means. Yet I am standing on a mountain of wealth compared to the billions who walk this earth in true shadow. I have a roof that keeps out the rain. I have bread on my table and clean water to cool my throat. I have books that have fed my mind and memories that have clothed my soul. In my limited resources, I am richer than 90% of humanity. I am not huddling in the mud of a war zone. I am not watching my skin cling to my bones in a famine. I am not a nameless number in a labor camp. Even in my failures, I have been held in a lap of luxury I was too arrogant to acknowledge. I am a rich man in the eyes of the world, a recipient of 1,000 daily miracles I treated as burdens. I accept my lot with a heart that is finally, mercifully, overflowing with gratitude. To have lived, to have felt, to have failed, and to still be standing in the light of a new dawn. It is more than I ever deserved. I am grateful for the little that is actually everything. I am finally home, finally have peace of mind. Not because my circumstances changed, but because my heart did.